But as you can see, we have amazing weather finally in the Pacific Northwest. So I've had an opportunity to kind of get acquainted with the Lotus a little bit more. It's been a lot of fun actually kind of getting more comfortable with the car now that if you saw my last video, I've made some tweaks, changes, updates, got the all the maintenance done, new tires on it. It's good to go. Figured today would be a good opportunity to talk about what makes this car special and actually drive it. And I think it kind of helps having the context of having all three of my cars that, you know, were any bit of sporty in pretense leading up to the Lotus. Just real quick to recap, I started driving with a 2000 Toyota Sienna, just a minivan. And then after about 4 or 5 years or so, when I was in college and had some money, I bought the Focus. And that was mind-blowingly sporty, did some autocrossing and stuff. And then got the 86 a few years ago, started tracking with that. And again, different level, you know, shifter feel was amazing, way sporty, first rear wheel drive experience. And then moved on to the Lotus. And now it's like cool to be able to see, hey, there's just little nuances and everything that I thought made the 86 so special compared to the Ford. It just amplified so much more with the Lotus, just being, you know, another 800 pounds lighter than the 86, which was already 400 pounds lighter than the Focus. Having it be mid-engine rear-wheel drive, just no sound damping. Yeah, just having, like, I thought the 86 had notchy direct shifter feel, and then I got in the Lotus, and it just feels like, you know, I don't want to use the rifle analogy. It just feels like pulling levers on machinery versus you go back to the 86 and it's kind of, you know, a little bit more damped and stuff. And then when I go back and forth, it's just, you pick up on these little subtleties. But driving the Lotus hard has made it so much easier to drive the 86 hard, because then it's just like, wow, you have so much more confidence with that more even weight distribution. And then it's just a little bit heavier, a little bit better damped, you know, a little bit less feeling on edge. Not to mention the fact that it costs, you know, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 less than this, and the Lotus is very fragile. But anyway, kind of rambling a little bit. What I want to do is I want to go for a drive, and I'll talk a little bit more about all the little inputs, what journalists talk about when they say this car is, you know, has great driving feel, you know, what they mean, how little bits of it compare to the other cars I've had. And maybe you guys, as probably also presumably younger or middle class enthusiasts, or maybe somebody who aspired to this like I did, think about cars and maybe would like to know about a car compared to something that, you know, you might be able to reference from experience, whether it's a GT86 or GR86, a Ford Focus, Mini Cooper. But anyway, you should be able to have some fun. That's a great thing about this car. You can have fun at any speed. Now, first thing, just, I thought that maybe this had something to do with the previous owner, but I really just think that this is, you know, a characteristic of the car. You get in this and it just smells like, if you've ever been to, like, you know, a shoe store or something that sells like leather goods, it just has that smell to it, which I kind of don't really understand. I don't know if that's like a glue thing or what, but every time I get in this car, it has that smell, and it's like not unpleasant and it's not BO. It's just, it has that smell to it. Anyway, little thing, you got the immobilizer, green light, key in. I've been told that this is very much like the S2000, but I've never driven one of those. Clutch in neutral. Now, funny thing, unlike any of my other cars, you don't actually need to put the clutch in to start it. And I learned that the hard way when I went to go register the car minutes after I bought this. I went to go start it when it was in gear, and I just hit the starter without my foot in the clutch, and the thing like lunged forward. So I was like, okay, good thing to learn. All right, let's get on out of here. I'll meet up with you once I'm on some nicer roads. Okay. So I'm letting it warm up. It'll let me know when it's up to temperature, but so first thing, everyone talks about the steering feel in a Lotus is amazing. So what does that mean? This is manual steering. So every input, you know, is translated from the road to your hands. And so steering feel, a lot of times what people are referring to is the car communicating how much grip you currently have based on the load of the wheels going to your hands. It's not necessarily the little vibrations, it's the weightiness of the feel as a result of the motion of the car and the loading of the car. And so you can tell when there's a lot of weight on the wheels and a lot of traction, and then it goes light, and the steering's very easy to turn when you lose that traction. That's what that means. And because there's no electronic interface, motors, whether hydraulic or electronic, fighting you or helping you, you get that direct feedback. That's what steering feel is. And it's manual, so there's no assist even at low speed. So when you're parked, it's very heavy. But what's funny is, as soon as you start moving, like 1 mile an hour, it gets very, very light. And it's actually pretty easy to live with and use. So that's the first thing that they talk about. Another thing that people kind of harp on about is throttle by wire versus throttle by cable. Now the 2005 Elise, the first federalized one in the US, was throttle by cable, like this one. And so you have direct linear throttle response no matter what, which is exactly what you want when you're going to be blipping the throttle for heel and toe downshifting, and it makes it predictable. You get one-to-one advantage with your foot against the throttle, and it's really satisfying. Versus, say, my 86 is notorious for having very jumpy throttle response in that it gives you about 90% throttle opening from about 15 to 20% input, and it makes it very hard to modulate for rev match downshifting and stuff. So it's another thing where it's just like, it just drives right, you know? It's one of those things where when you get behind the wheel and you have the manual steering and you have the throttle by cable, basically manual throttle, it just feels right. And it's just, it's not a hard car to jump into, even though it might look a little bit intimidating or the cabin might look a little bit raw or extreme. It's just, you jump in and just the inputs are what you expect. And that's the thing with the Lotus, is that it drives exactly as I would expect it to. It's a little bit raw, you know, you don't have a lot of sound damping or sound deadening, and you know, it's very lightweight, it's very stiff, but it's not uncomfortable, and the inputs are very predictable. One thing with the brakes, I mentioned in another video I adjusted the brake pedal, I raised it up. In doing so, that made the brakes a lot firmer and like bite immediately. And so you have AP Racing brakes up front, Brembos in the back. I believe they're dual piston in the front, single piston in the rear, and they're perfectly adequate. You could stop this car exactly as you would predict. It actually, they feel a lot more confidence inspiring than in the say GR86, where I have the premium GR86 but with the base brakes, or the standard brakes, and on stock pads you really have to get deep into it. They get better with your track pads and track fluid, but you really have to push hard against those, whereas these, once again, that it really emphasizes how lightweight the car is, because everything just drives as you would expect it to once you know about this vehicle. Actually talking with the son of the woman who drove this car, or who sold me this car, and he was telling me how he would go on back roads drives with it, and he would just kind of flow through the gears in like 4,000 to 6,000 RPM, whereas I like to, you know, really like use all of the rev range when I'm on like more spirited roads. And I kind of made the point of like, hey, we're probably doing the same speed, it's just, you know, whatever experience we're getting out of it is just exactly what we want. And it just speaks to how this car can be satisfying for different types of drivers, because you could just flow with it nice and easily, a nice lightweight package, or you can go nuts and pretend that you're a Formula 1 driver and really get the most out of the rev range. And I think that's what's kind of sweet about the engine too, is that it doesn't make a lot of power, doesn't make a lot of torque, but again, it's very matched to the size and weight of the car. And it also, I think, perfectly complements how this is a mid-engine car, whereas, you know, a lot of people, like, you'll see them crash mid-engine cars when they're inexperienced because they're not used to, say, like the amount of power out of maybe like a Ferrari or something like that, or a McLaren, where it's got 500, 600, 700 horsepower and the car likes to rotate really easily. Whereas this, you You really have to work for the power. It's at the top, the torque is at the top, and so you still get all those nice dynamics of handling, and you still get some speed because of how light it is, and it still makes power, but it doesn't try to jump out of its own skin, you know? And so, again, I just think that every little bit of this is so matched to the other aspects of it to make it such a perfectly balanced car and just a fun driving experience. So we'll go through some corners right here. Nice firm brakes, heel toe perfect. Through these corners, rev it out on the brakes, turn in. Oh my God, it just feels so perfect. And you know what? We're not doing crazy speeds. And I did not get this thing to be super loud. I don't really have a desire to put crazy exhaust on it. I don't want to be antisocial. I just want to have fun in my car, and this is the perfect car for that. And these are the perfect types of roads for a car like this. Granted, like, this is a little bit more, you know, densely populated. There's some neighborhoods and stuff around here, so I like to go to the more sparsely populated areas if I want to drive this harder. But you know, for roads over here, you still don't have to be doing crazy speeds, the kind of speeds that would get you called out on social media, to have fun. You could just flow with the car like my friend does. You could rev it out like I do. And you know, as long as you keep a head about yourself, you don't have to, you know, be driving recklessly. So much fun just to kind of get those little squirts of acceleration. Very, very easy to drive. The shifter action is just fantastic. Like, I don't know who would complain about this, but again, I think that's the advantage of doing like what I do. I'm gonna keep an eye out for this semi truck behind me. Let me just keep it here. Oh, don't kill me. Don't kill me. Okay. Yeah, like, that's the thing about progressing, like, linearly through cars, right? Not jumping too fast as you make a little bit more money to something that's crazy above, you know, your previous experience. So, for instance, you know, I stayed in the 200 horsepower range, and I actually went down to the 100, the 190s with this. And I just went down in weight. Because you know what? The roads aren't changing, right? I don't need to go faster because I get no reward from going faster. I get a reward from the enjoyment. And I get a reward from the variance in experience. And what keeps me in perspective is I've taken a couple friends for rides in this car, and it's just so different of an experience to compared to what they're used to, and what I've even driven them with my own cars. But this is such a different experience that even though we're doing the exact same speeds, it's just completely mind-blowing to them. Because all the inputs, all the senses and stuff are just being provoked in a different way. Look, I'm not even getting on that second cam. So effectively, I'm probably using 160 horsepower right now. And you know what? I'm having a lot more fun than if I was driving a GT350 on this road. Because either way, I would be stuck behind those same three vehicles in front of me. I would just do it sooner and look like more of a jerk. And I'd probably plow into the side of that Ford. My only gripe about this car in terms of inputs and feel is that I'm not a huge fan of the seats, and it's not because they're uncomfortable. I just think that they are the one thing that doesn't match the rest of the car. And I'm not to say that, just like everything else, they are minimalist. You know, they're kind of sculpted buckets made of fiberglass or whatever, just like most of the other car. But the issue is that they're a little bit wider than I would expect for a car like this. Like, I'm held in my seat better in the 86 and much better in the Focus, to be honest. And I would just like a little bit more side bolstering, where I probably have a solid like inch or two of space on the other side. So if I'm gonna take a corner, I have to like consciously lean against that bolster to kind of keep myself in place, because, you know, when you're driving, you know, more spirited, you don't want to have a bunch of, you know, weight on your hands kind of holding you upright, because it kind of like reduces your confidence, at least in my experience. You know, you really want to lay into the seat, plant yourself, and just keep your hands really light. And that's one thing that you kind of have to prepare yourself for going into the corner with a car like this. Now, I could probably fix that getting some sort of padding or swapping out the seats as an extreme option, but to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. It's one of those things that you notice for a few weeks and then you just kind of get used to as you drive. I was kind of fiddling with the radio earlier. Like, even though this is the aftermarket unit, well, they were both aftermarket units. Even though this is my aftermarket unit, my modern unit, it still is kind of a pain just to kind of fiddle with and stuff, because I didn't want to go, you know, Android Auto, Bluetooth. I don't think that matches, one, my use case for the car, and two, the theme of the car. This kind of feels as much in place as that crappy 20-year-old Blaupunk did, but at least this has Bluetooth and it has a volume knob. But yeah, like that's just about the only issues I have, other than the fact that I'm slightly afraid of the fragility of this car. But it's not gotten any bad attention. You know, I've parked it around town, it's been okay. Like, granted, it still freaks me out a little bit, but God, I just love driving this thing so much. And I like how little it is. I feel like I have plenty of room on the road. Just gonna head up here. And maybe it'd be nice to have a quicker steering ratio, just because the steering gets quite heavy, obviously, as you do a tighter turn, because like I said earlier, you're really loading up the tires, and then you kind of have to go hand over hand. I believe the Exige has a faster steering rack, and you can swap those in. It's just, you know, it'd be nice to not have to do that. Also, I'm a little bit spoiled because modern cars, like my Focus, like the 86, have really fast steering racks. But again, you could drive around that and forget about it pretty quickly too. Oh, this is so good. 40 miles an hour, like not going fast. Just enjoying it. It's so fun. Like, I don't need to take this on a track to have fun. I just take it down the back roads. And you know what? Once I swap this onto these... Oh, is that a beaver? Huh. Once I swapped this onto these new tires, a lot of the harshness from the ride went away. And it's just a lot nicer to drive now. So I got a question for you if you're still here. Now that you see, like, you're pretty well acquainted with my three cars. I got the Focus ST, I got the GR86, I got this. What sort of content do you think I should do? I got those three cars. What would you like to see? Would you like to see me compare, like, directly the 86 versus the Lotus? Because you can get into a Lotus, you can get into a GR86 or even a GT86 for actually not too different a price. I could talk to you about what a financial mess it was to buy this car, and I'm not just talking about the cost of it. So let me know in the comments below what you think, and please subscribe.